same athlete, same strength. But then you change grip and width, and suddenly pull-ups feel completely different. I'm not just talking comfort here. I mean range of motion, pulling path, the muscles that get recruited, or which tissues get cooked. So before we start talking about grip width and how grip style affect your pull-ups, we need to understand the big picture. A pull-up is a closed kinetic chain movement. What does that mean? The hands are fixed onto the bar and the body moves in space. And this is an important concept that I tend to use a lot in my coaching, which also drives a lot of the decisions that I make when it comes to troubleshooting pull-ups or chin-ups. And that is that the spine and the rib cage kind of set the platform. Then the scapula and the shoulder are sitting on top of that platform to then let the humerus, the upper arm, finish the job. And that's also the sequencing that we're going to use when troubleshooting pull-ups and grip style and grip width. To keep things super simple, we are only going to focus on the two biggest variables or the two biggest levers. The first one, the vertical range of motion. So how far your body travels up and down. And secondly, bar distance. So how far you're away during the pull from the bar. And grip style and grip width affect these things. And those two things change the pulling pattern. First, let's look at the grip style. The regular grip with thumbs around. This is the default option for most athletes because it gives you a consistent interface with the bar. The regular grip changes some things mechanically. Most of the time it gives you more vertical range of motion, right? Simply because the wrist is under the bar and not in front or behind the bar. We are staying closer to the bar, and as we're staying closer to the bar, it also gives you a more honest bottom position, to be honest, right? Because if the hands are not really grabbing or death gripping the bar, you can actually relax the arms. And as we talked about before, initially it's all about creating a proper platform for the scapula to sit on the rib cage rather than the forearms taking over or the arms taking over in general. And when the mechanics are cleaner, the bar distance is closer, forearm is closer to vertical, your bigger shoulder extensors and adductors can do their job, like your lats and teres major. And the second most common grip being used is the semi-false grip, where the bar sits deeper in your hand. And this grip usually comes with two effects. It changes the vertical range of motion and increases or decreases the distance to the bar. Why do I say increases or decreases? Because the effect changes slightly whenever we're using this grip with chin-ups or pull-ups. Now let's put this into practice. If I'm doing a pull-up with a semi-false grip, can you see that if I'm bending my wrist slightly, I'm going to shorten the range of motion. I'm shortening the range of motion in the vertical range of motion, right? That means I don't need to pull as high anymore. But it also can change bar distance. And as I said, it differs from pull-ups to chin-ups, right? In a pull-up, the semi-false grip might increase the range of motion, the distance to the bar. In a chin-up, we are going to decrease the distance to the bar. Now let's look at this from the side. Okay, if I'm holding the bar with this neutral grip or this regular grip where the wrist is nicely under the bar, I'm closer to the bar, right? But now, if I put my wrist into the semi-false grip, the range of motion in the vertical plane is reduced, but the distance to the bar has increased, right? So The trade-off of reduced vertical range of motion comes with an increased distance to the bar, or in some cases can decrease the distance to the bar, as for example in the chin-up. So a semi-false grip is not worse or better, it's a constraint. You choose it because it creates a pull you can repeat and not because it feels like a shortcut. Now we've covered grip style, the next thing is grip width. Grip width affects the same things. It affects the vertical range of motion and the distance to the bar. Let's start with the vertical range of motion. Wider grips usually tend to decrease the vertical range of motion, right? I think that makes sense. By gripping wider, we can pull more vertically. We don't need to pull as far away from the bar. Obviously, as we are decreasing the vertical range of motion, also the distance to the bar is probably a little bit less in comparison to a more narrow grip, right? The more narrow we grip, the more we need to pull around the bar. The distance to the bar changes the pull path and the leverage you have through the rep. If you're closer to the bar, you've got a pull that feels more up and down, simply because you don't have to pull too far away and around the bar. If you're further away, the pull often becomes more curved because you have to manage the distance. Grip width also changes whether we bias more shoulder adduction, so the elbow moving more at the side of the torso, or shoulder extension, the elbow moving more in front of the torso. Wider grips usually tend to lean more towards this adduction bias, right? As we grip wider, we don't pull ourselves away from the bar and have the elbows in front. No, we drive them more to the sides, so it's more adduction biased. With those more narrow grips, like a chin-up or a closer grip pull-up, we'll keep the elbows more in front of the torso, and therefore the movement becomes more extension biased. This then obviously also affects the distance to the bar directly, and obviously also the muscular recruitment. Y tends to feel more like pulling down to the side of the torso, recruiting more of those vertical lumbar lat fibers, whereas the shoulder extension bias movement obviously recruits more of those thoracic lat fibers, so those upper ones. So now let's combine them. We can use grip width and grip style to improve our performance outcome and improve our efficiency, especially in regards to competition lifts, where the goal is to maximize performance outcome and ideally move the load through the shortest range of motion, because that's the most efficient way. And if we would be maxing out the rules for competition, obviously the best variation would probably be a wide grip pull-up with some sort of semi-false grip. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend this to everyone, in particular if you are restricted in overhead range of motion. So if you're stiff and you don't have full range end range of shoulder flexion unlocked yet, then this is probably not the smartest idea to start with. As always, when you want to widen the grip, I'd recommend to do that over time and ensure you are improving mobility at the same time. Just remember, mobility is not the same as flexibility. Just because you can reach overhead doesn't mean you can actually load that range in a compensation-free manner. So ensure you are actually improving your active range of motion, and then based on these requirements, you can then widen the grip, for example. And when, as I said, a wider grip with a bit of semi-false grip would be probably the best in terms of efficiency. Also a wide grip chin-up with a semi-false grip. Obviously, it reduces the vertical range of motion, and in terms of the chin-up, also the distance to the bar. For the pull-up, some people could be doing better with this more regular grip or the semi-false grip. So I'm not going to give you any recommendations who should use which grip. This should be something that is individual. Just wanted to give you a few insights what the grip does and how it affects your training, and obviously the range of motion of the pull-ups and chin-ups, simply because this is an important topic, not just for efficiency, but also for health. And here is a little cheat sheet on how to use these guidelines. If you're a beginner, don't change your grip. Keep it shoulder width apart and use a regular grip, especially if your goal isn't to compete in the near future. If you only feel it in the arms, you're probably gripping the bar too hard, and a regular grip might be slightly better for you. And in most cases, it helps to go a little bit wider, because the more narrow we grip, the more elbow flexion we will use. And the more elbow flexion we use, the more the elbow flexors, brachioradialis, biceps brachii, will contribute to it. The semi-false grip is optional. You don't need to use it. Test it first. If it works well for you, perfect, but it's not something that everyone should use. And a quick safety rule: if the grip makes pain spike above a 3 out of 10, or you feel it worse the next day, step back and change it right away. Good training should build you up, not slowly irritate you. That's a wrap for today's video. If you haven't done yet, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on any new video. And if you need help with your own training, whether that is guidance with programming, rehabilitation from an injury, or just getting stronger in the competition lifts of street lifting, then reach out for my one-on-one online coaching. The link is in the description down below, as the link for my newsletter, the Streetlifting Academy. And that's a wrap. See you in the next one.